Okay, let's unpack this. Picture a horror that's not about monsters with claws, but something far more insidious. Imagine endless yellow rooms, right? A damp, musty smell clinging to the air, and just the maddening drone of fluorescent lights.
Hmm.
This is the Backrooms. It's this digital nightmare whispered about online, a place you supposedly stumble into by, and I quote, no clipping out of reality in the wrong areas.
Right.
Today, we're not just talking about the legend. We actually have what seems to be a firsthand account, a journal detailing one man's terrifying descent into
Yeah.
this unsettling void.
And what's really fascinating here is how this relatively simple, almost sterile image,
Hmm.
the mundane horror of an empty office space has resonated so deeply. This idea of a hidden, sort of wrong reality just beneath the surface of our own, it clearly taps into a primal unease.
Exactly. So for this deep dive, we're examining the alleged experience of Todd Daniels. He's a 34-year-old who, fueled by online rumors, believed the abandoned Vermont shopping center held a gateway to the backrooms. We've got the transcript of a YouTube video he was supposedly making, alongside entries from his physical journal chronicling his exploration.
Yeah.
Our goal is to contrast this intensely personal and, quite frankly, terrifying narrative with the broader phenomenon of the backrooms as it's documented in, like, Wikipedia articles.
And this juxtaposition is crucial, I think. We have Todd's very specific, almost boots-on-the-ground account set against the sprawling, collaboratively built lore of the online backrooms. It lets us investigate both the initial spark of this digital campfire story and, how it's grown into this complex mythology. Our mission really is to understand the core appeal of this particular brand of internet horror.
So let's begin at the Vermont Shopping Center, the seemingly ordinary location that became the stage for Todd's alleged, well, extraordinary experience. According to his initial journal entries, Todd wasn't just some random internet ghost hunter. He'd spent 6 months preparing for this.
6 months. Wow.
Yeah, driven by the unexplained disappearances of several homeless individuals and addicts in the area. He suspected Vermont Mall was somehow involved, a potential entry point maybe, and he felt this sense of responsibility to investigate their fate.
Okay.
This kind of elevates his motivation beyond just, thrill-seeking, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. That detail immediately adds depth to his character. His motivation wasn't just morbid curiosity about an online legend. There was a real-world concern, a desire to understand these disappearances. This blend of the mundane and the potentially supernatural is quite compelling right from the start.
And he wasn't exactly going in unprepared either. His Osprey Atmos 65-liter backpack was packed. We're talking a 7-day supply of MREs and protein bars. He had a water purification setup, a lightweight tent, because, get this, he speculated the backrooms might have meteorologically diverse indoor weather.
A tent for indoors? Yeah.
Huh. A sleeping bag, multiple light sources, enough batteries to power a small shop. This almost obsessive level of prep, it underscores this unsettling blend of mundane survivalism and, like, fantastical dread that fuels the whole backrooms concept.
That detail about the tent is fascinating. It speaks to a mind trying to apply logic and preparedness to a completely illogical, potentially hazardous environment based purely on online speculation. What does this level of detailed planning, based on internet rumors, tell us about the power these stories hold?
Well, then there's the gear that raises some eyebrows. A Glock 19X with extra magazines,
Okay.
along with knives and even a flare gun. He justified this by suggesting he might encounter dangerous individuals within the abandoned mall, which sadly isn't entirely an unfounded concern in places like that.
It really highlights a blurring of realities in Todd's mind, doesn't it? He's preparing for both the known dangers of an abandoned urban environment and the unknown threats suggested by the backrooms mythos. How does this anticipation of both mundane and supernatural danger shape our perception of his later experiences?
Good question. So he gained entry to the mall easily enough, found an unlocked, heavily rusted door. His description paints a really vivid picture of decay, rust, cobwebs like cotton candy, dirt layered everywhere, and these nasty colored stains marring every surface.
Certainly.
And the central fountain, practically overflowing with stagnant green, thick water that just reeked of oil and dead fish.
Yeah.
a truly repulsive sensory experience, setting a tone of immediate wrongness even before anything truly bizarre happens.
Yeah, those sensory details are so crucial in establishing atmosphere. The smell, the sight of the water, it creates an immediate sense of unease and decay, signaling that this is a place where the natural order has broken down. It primes us, for the unsettling events to come.
And almost immediately, his plan started to unravel. No phone reception, which okay, he expected. But then his GoPro, his main tool for documenting this supposed journey, started malfunctioning.
Uh,
The video files corrupted, and soon it just wouldn't record at all. So his intended evidence, gone almost instantly.
hmm. How does that early technical failure influence your perception of the reliability of his later account?
That's the thing, isn't it? It immediately introduces an element of unreliable narration, even within the framework of this alleged firsthand experience.
Was it just a technological fluke, or could there be something within the environment of the mall itself interfering with his equipment? This uncertainty adds another layer of intrigue and maybe skepticism to his tale.
Things move beyond just decay to genuine strangeness fairly quickly. He recounted finding a trash can practically bursting with unusually large rats.
Okay, large rats.
His instinct was to draw his Glock, but he got the distinct impression they were utterly unimpressed, like they just stared.
Unimpressed rats. That's like that darkly humorous detail amidst the growing unease is quite striking, isn't it?
It is. That image of oversized rodents seemingly unfazed by a firearm is deeply unsettling. It suggests a potential disruption of the natural order within this space, a hint that the rules of reality might already be bending in unexpected ways.
Mhm.
So he attempted to set up a base in an abandoned Dick's Sporting Goods, but the mildew smell was just overwhelming. And even though it was daytime, the inside got darker and darker, heavy cloud-covered, dilapidated roof.
Right.
Rain started pouring through the holes, adding to the feeling of exposure, and his tech woes continued, phone and GoPro completely dead. This persistent darkness, despite the time of day, feels like another early warning sign, wouldn't you agree?
Absolutely. The diminishing light in broad daylight is a significant deviation from the expected. It creates a sense of claustrophobia and vulnerability, further isolating him within this deteriorating environment. The ongoing tech failures just compound this isolation, stripping him of his ability to document or potentially seek help.
Then came the encounter with the raccoon. He was apparently woken up by a loud crash and found this enormous raccoon, bigger than any he'd ever seen.
Okay.
And he described its eyes as almost human. This encounter deeply unsettled him, and I can certainly see why. What's the significance of this particular anomaly, a seemingly familiar creature exhibiting an unsettlingly human-like quality?
Yeah, the detail about the raccoon's human-like eyes introduces that element of the uncanny, doesn't it? It takes something recognizable and twists it just enough to be profoundly disturbing. It suggests a potential blurring of the lines between the natural and something else. It plants a seed of doubt about the very nature of what he might encounter in this place.
Over the following day, the darkness inside the mall became absolute, just an oppressive void despite it being August. The temperature plummeted, too, feeling unseasonably cold for Maryland.
Strange.
He even briefly considered if the mall's AC was somehow still running, a notion he himself called highly improbable. This persistent, unnatural darkness and cold, what might be the implications?
These environmental shifts are key indicators that Todd may have crossed a threshold into something beyond the normal. The consistent darkness, the sudden drop in temperature. It suggests a fundamental alteration of the mall's internal environment, something that can't just be explained by neglect or weather.
Then the sound that would undoubtedly send chills down anyone's spine, a distant, panicked scream, and it seemed to be rapidly approaching him.
Oh, wow.
He distinctly heard the word run. Understandably, he was terrified, took refuge in an old clothing store, Glock drawn, just listening to the eerie silence that followed. That single word, run, carries so much immediate dread, doesn't it?
It absolutely does.
Yeah.
The scream shatters the unsettling quiet and introduces a tangible sense of immediate danger. The urgency of that single word implies a threat so severe that vocalization is reduced to its most primal form. It marks a shift from an unsettling environment to one that actively feels dangerous.
And here's where Todd's account takes a sharp turn into the truly bizarre. While navigating the back of the mall, trying to avoid where he heard the screaming, he encountered carpet.
Carpet. In the mall. Wet, beige carpet. Inexplicably appearing in a section between a Jamba Juice and a Hot Topic, replacing the mall's expected tile flooring. There was even a distinct uneven line, like a tide mark, where the flooring just abruptly changed.
Oh.
He himself acknowledged the utter illogicality of this. This sudden appearance of something so out of place What does it signify in the context of his narrative?
This is the first major anomaly that definitively suggests a departure from conventional reality. Carpet spontaneously materializing in an abandoned mall with a clear, unnatural boundary. It defies any logical explanation. It serves as a potent symbol of the fabric of reality beginning to fray or shift around him.
Driven by this surreal discovery, he continued exploring despite the deepening oppressive darkness. He started encountering storefronts he was certain had never existed, like Donovan's Red Meat, a butcher shop in a mall, weird, old bone, an ice cream parlor that apparently smelled like roadkill.
And a massive Marcy's department store from which he heard the distinct sound of something enormous breathing. These impossible locations, what do they tell us about the nature of the space he might be entering?
These incongruous storefronts are classic elements of dreamlike or surreal environments. They represent a further fracturing of the familiar, where the expected logic of a shopping mall is being warped and populated with unsettling and nonsensical elements. And the sound of breathing from within the darkness of Marcy's, that adds a palpable sense of a hidden, potentially monstrous presence.
And then the ultimate no clip. He was walking on the damp carpet, enveloped in near total darkness, and then, in a literal instant, the mall vanished. He describes clicking into an office environment.
Just like that.
Just like that, no gradual transition, just a sudden shift after turning a corner. This abrupt change mirrors the core concept of entering the backrooms, doesn't it?
It does indeed. The sudden transition, the lack of any intermediary space, directly reflects the no-clipping mechanism described in the original Backrooms lore. It signifies a complete break from the previous reality and entry into a space governed by different unknown rules.
He found himself in this claustrophobic space compared to the vastness of the mall. Watered-down yellow fluorescent lights buzzing incessantly overhead, damp beige carpet underfoot, narrow yellow-beige-gray walls stretching endlessly.
The classic description.
Exactly. The air hung thick with a moldy smell like spoiled milk. He noted the monotonous repetition of carpeted hallways and bare rooms, all identical, leading to immediate disorientation. He had to start marking his path with a Sharpie. This description aligns almost perfectly with the foundational imagery of the backrooms.
The consistency of his sensory details with the established Backrooms aesthetic is quite striking. The buzzing lights, the moist carpet, the specific color palette, these elements have become iconic. His immediate disorientation and need to leave markers underscore the disorienting and potentially infinite nature of this space.
He even discovered stairs leading to another level. This one was brighter and colder, with a pervasive dampness. Oddly, this level featured functional water coolers.
Functional. That's strange.
Right. A mundane detail in an otherwise completely bizarre setting. But then there were the clocks, utterly non-functional, some frozen, others ticking backward, one spinning wildly, reinforcing the sense that time itself was fractured.
Yeah.
This introduction of different levels with varying characteristics is a key element of the expanded Backrooms mythology online.
The emergence of different levels with distinct environmental conditions and anomalies is a hallmark of the collaborative world building that has defined the Backrooms. The presence of functional, everyday objects like water coolers amidst the pervasive strangeness serves to heighten the unsettling contrast and the feeling that something is fundamentally wrong. The malfunctioning clocks further emphasize the distorted nature of time within this space.
Things took a decidedly violent turn when he encountered what he called mega rats, dog-sized rodents.
Dogs.
Yep. With disturbingly human, familiar eyes. He was attacked and forced to defend himself, emptying an entire magazine from his Glock into one of them. He claimed the other rats just looked at him with this incredible sadness.
Sadness, wow. That escalation to physical violence and the unsettling detail of the rat's expressions mark a significant shift in the nature of his experience.
The introduction of hostile entities is a common trope in expanded Backrooms lore. These mega rats, with their exaggerated size and disturbingly human-like eyes, represent a clear and immediate physical threat. But the detail about their sad expressions adds a layer of psychological unease, blurring the lines between monstrous and sentient. Following this terrifying encounter, he came across a pitch-black hallway that seemed to radiate this palpable sense of evil. Hearing the chittering of the remaining mega rats, he barricaded himself in a nearby room.
Smart move.
Faced with the choice between the known threat of the rats and the unknown horror of the oppressive darkness, he eventually chose to risk the black hallway. This moment highlights the desperate and terrifying choices he's forced to make.
It does. He's constantly forced to weigh one unknown threat against another, a hallmark of a truly nightmarish situation. The radiating evil of the black hallway suggests a presence far more malevolent than the physical danger posed by the rats, tapping into a more primal sense of fear.
The hallway transformed into this terrifying, constricting tunnel. The temperature plummeted, the stench of decay intensified, and the walls began to close in. They became porous, warm, and wet. He felt as if he were inside a living organism.
Oh, that's horrifying.
He was squeezed through a shrinking opening, losing all of his remaining gear in the process, barely managing to escape. This description is incredibly visceral and claustrophobic, really conveying his sheer terror.
This descent into the organic, constricting tunnel marks a significant departure from the more sterile environments previously described. It suggests that the backrooms are not merely static spaces, but can shift and contort in terrifying ways, becoming actively hostile and almost alive. The loss of his supplies leaves him utterly vulnerable.
His ordeal continued with a series of increasingly bizarre encounters. He found a huge mirror where his reflection wasn't quite right away. Subtle, unsettling shifts in his features. A slight but noticeable delay in its movements. He heard a soft ripping sound as he left the room. He ran out of food and water, began to feel as though he was being followed by a shadow, and his mental state clearly deteriorated.
Understandable.
His attempt to boil water from a sprinkler head failed when the water froze mid-fall.
Mid-fall.
Yeah, a clear indication of the unstable nature of this environment. He even became ill after drinking water from one of those seemingly normal water coolers he found earlier. These events paint a picture of a reality completely untethered from logic.
These increasingly surreal and illogical occurrences demonstrate the backroom's capacity to distort not only physical space, but also fundamental aspects of reality like time and perception. The unreliable mirror, the impossible physics of the frozen water, the paradoxical sickness from a seemingly safe water source. It all contributes to a growing sense of disorientation and helplessness.
He found a brief, unsettling respite in a room filled with strange, unbranded vending machines, offering bizarre food items and something called hum cola.
Hum cola. Okay.
But the feeling of being watched never left him. Then he stumbled into a completely dark room and heard the horrifying sounds of what he believed was someone taking their own life.
Oh, God.
In another instance, he witnessed impossible time passage through a plant or tree that seemed to grow at an accelerated, unnatural rate right before his eyes. These encounters delve into some truly dark and disturbing territory.
They really do. These encounters move beyond simple environmental horror into the realm of psychological trauma and the uncanny. The implied suicide and the darkness and the accelerated growth of the plant are deeply disturbing and surreal, further eroding any sense of stability or hope.
The light at the end of the tunnel, so to speak, turned out to be the same distorting mirror he'd encountered earlier. This time, however, the reflection wasn't even attempting to mimic him. It simply smiled. A silent, unnerving acknowledgement. Utterly exhausted and broken, he made a final, desperate move, stepping into the mirror.
Into it.
That's what he wrote. This cyclical return to a significant anomaly is particularly unsettling, isn't it?
It is. The reappearance of the mirror suggests a potentially inescapable loop or maybe a focal point within the backrooms. The reflection's refusal to imitate him and his direct, malevolent smile imply a loss of his own identity or a confrontation with something truly other.
Todd's final journal entries descend into despair. Filled with apologies to his family, the terrifying detail of his reflection watching him as a laughing sound drew closer. But then, a jarring, almost whiplash-inducing shift occurs.
What happened?
The very next entry, dated the following morning, back at the Vermont fountain, claims he has escaped, feels fantastic, and now finds the abandoned mall beautiful.
Wait, what? Beautiful. After all that.
Exactly. His behavior takes this disturbing turn as he urges someone unseen to run, expresses a desire for his future Todd to remain in this altered state forever, and then he just discards his journal. This sudden change is deeply unsettling.
It's profoundly unsettling. This abrupt and complete reversal in his demeanor strongly suggests that his escape, if it even occurred, has come at a terrible cost. The seemingly positive tone, mixed with the disturbing suggestions and the dismissal of his own record of events, paints a picture of someone fundamentally altered by their experience.
Adding another layer of chilling ambiguity is the evidence note apparently discovered with the journal. It mentions a lack of wildlife in the mall since a redacted incident.
Redacted.
Yeah. The lab couldn't definitively confirm the journal's contents, but noted a disturbing consistency with debriefed survivors from that same redacted incident. And there's chilling concern from management about the anomaly potentially spreading, even discussing sterilizing the mall and the entire town.
Whoa. That elevates Todd's personal nightmare to something with far-reaching and officially acknowledged implications, within this narrative at least.
This official note introduces a chilling, real-world validation again within the story of the strange occurrences at Vermont Mall. The redacted incident, the mention of other survivors, it suggests Todd's experience might not be unique and that authorities are aware of and concerned by something inexplicable happening there. The drastic measures being considered underscore the potential scale and danger of this phenomenon.
Definitely.
So let's pull back and consider the broader landscape. The Wikipedia articles inform us that the Backrooms originated from a single 4chan post back in 2019. Featured that now iconic image of empty yellow rooms, the scent of moist carpet, the droning fluorescent lights.
Right, the classic starting point.
And the concept of no clipping was central from the very beginning.
Yeah, the 4chan origin is typical of many internet-born urban legends. The anonymity and ephemeral nature of the platform allow for the initial seeding of unsettling ideas without authorial constraint, fostering a sense of collective mystery and interpretation.
And from that initial unsettling image and brief description, the Backrooms phenomenon just exploded into this massive, collaborative world-building project. Countless levels were created by online communities, each with its own unique environments and terrifying entities. Wikipedia highlights the three foundational levels. Level 0, the original image. Level 1, a darker, more industrial space. And Level 2, characterized by service tunnels, higher temperatures, and more dangerous entities. The speed and scale of this collaborative creation are quite remarkable, aren't they?
It really is. This rapid expansion is a hallmark of internet fandom and collective storytelling. The initial ambiguity and open-ended nature of the Backrooms concept provided fertile ground for countless interpretations and additions, transforming a simple image into a vast and intricate fictional universe. The comparison to other collaborative horror projects like the SCP Foundation is quite apt.
Interestingly, the origin of that unsettlingly familiar original Backrooms image was finally traced, just in May 2024, to a rather mundane source.
Oh yeah? What was it?
A 2003 photograph of a Hobbytown store in Oshkosh, Wisconsin during renovations. It showed signs of water damage.
A hobby town? Seriously?
Seriously, it's a surprisingly ordinary beginning for such a pervasive and disturbing internet nightmare, wouldn't you say?
It is indeed. That revelation adds such an ironic twist to the entire legend. What was initially perceived as this otherworldly, deeply unsettling space was, in reality, a mundane, somewhat dilapidated room in a hobby shop. It highlights the incredible power of the internet to take the ordinary and imbue it with extraordinary, often unsettling, meaning through shared imagination.
The Backrooms phenomenon clearly tapped into something primal. It became deeply intertwined with the liminal spaces aesthetic, that unsettling feeling you get from familiar places that are usually bustling but are suddenly empty and silent.
Right.
The hashtag liminal spaces hashtag saw a huge surge in popularity. There was even a TikTok trend of people trying to find entrances to the Backrooms using Google Earth. What do you think is the core appeal of these liminal spaces and their connection to the Backrooms?
Well, the appeal of liminal spaces lies in their inherent disruption of our expectations and routines. These are places we know, but their emptiness and silence create a sense of disorientation and the uncanny. The Backrooms perfectly embodies and amplifies this feeling, trapping you in this unsettling in-between state, disconnected from the usual flow of life.
And the Backrooms experienced a significant resurgence in popularity, didn't it? January 2022, Kane Pixels' incredibly effective found footage YouTube video went viral.
Oh yeah, that series was huge.
It even served as inspiration for Apple TV Plus's Severance, and there's an upcoming A24 movie adaptation directed by Kane Parsons himself. Not to mention tons of video game adaptations. This really demonstrates just how deeply this concept has permeated mainstream popular culture.
The success of Kane Pixels web series highlights the power of visual storytelling in amplifying the Backrooms mythos. The found footage format adds that layer of realism and immediacy to the horror. The fact that this relatively recent internet creation has inspired adaptations in major film and television speaks volumes about its widespread appeal and cultural impact.
And it's not all just terrifying, right? As one commentator noted, there's an inevitable silliness of internet horror. The backrooms have also become a source of countless memes and ironic humor, which seems to be a common trajectory for many online phenomena.
Hmm.
Why do you think this element of humor often emerges from intense horror within internet culture?
This duality, the genuine fear and the subsequent ironic detachment, is a fascinating aspect of how internet culture processes unsettling themes. The initial horror can be intense, but the internet often responds with humor as the coping mechanism, right? A way to diffuse the anxiety and engage with the concept on a different level. It allows for both genuine scares and a more lighthearted engagement with the shared fiction.
So, to bring it all together, we've journeyed through Todd Daniels' increasingly disturbing account of a potential descent into the backrooms. It's a narrative rich with unsettling sensory details, impossible locations, terrifying entities, and a deeply ambiguous return.
Yeah.
We've also explored the core elements of the backrooms legend, its surprisingly mundane origin in a water-damaged photo, and its remarkable evolution into a widespread internet phenomenon that taps into our anxieties about the familiar becoming alien and that profound fear of being utterly lost and alone.
Todd's narrative, regardless of its veracity, serves as a potent illustration of the core anxieties and intriguing elements that have captivated so many online. His initial curiosity leading to escalating terror and a potentially compromised return really resonates with the fundamental unease that underlies the backrooms phenomenon. And the juxtaposition of his detailed personal experience with the revealed real-world origin of the backrooms image offers a striking aha moment. It highlights the extraordinary power of collective imagination to transform the ordinary into something truly compelling and often terrifying.
Right. Considering Todd's final, deeply unsettling journal entries and that cryptic evidence note, it really makes you wonder, doesn't it? Is the backrooms just a shared fictional space, a fascinating testament to the power of collaborative online storytelling? Or does the intensity of the lore, the persistent fascination with liminal spaces and accounts like Todd's, hint at something more profound about our collective subconscious, about the way we perceive reality and those quiet, forgotten corners that just feel wrong? What happens when the lines between the stories we tell and the world we experience begin to blur, both online and in the silent emptiness of places like the abandoned Vermont shopping center?